Sure. Okay. Good. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Are we good to start? This is my timer. Okay. Hello everyone. My name is Raghavendra Ramesh. I work for Supra as VP of R&D at Supra. Today I'll be talking about Supra Containers, app chains on layer 1. Uh, what? Can't hear? No, you need. Okay. Okay. Yeah. I'll, okay. Today I'm going to talk about Supra Containers, app chains on layer 1. Yeah. Let's get on with it. Yeah, let's unpack what app chains are to begin with, right? And why app chains are popular. These are some of the examples of app chains. If you look at DeFi kingdoms, DYDX, Osmosis, and the Unichain, which is in the making. If you look at the TVL of all these chains, currently it's like 4 million on DeFi kingdoms, 400 million on DYDX, and similar numbers for Osmosis. And if you look at Unichain, which is not a reality as of now, but the potential which the Uniswap holds, the amount of money is around 4 billion. So, and it's moving to an app chain. So this shows that app chains are popular, and app chains are required for as a business model. Let's unpack what exactly is an app chain, right? Fundamentally, a blockchain dedicated to an app is an app chain, right? Or a group of related apps. But more importantly, what it enables is the criteria. App chain enables an app-centric business model. Let's say on a public blockchain, anybody can deploy a smart contract, right? And the users pay transaction fee that goes to the network. So what exactly is app getting out of it? Where is the business model coming in? Where is the revenue model being coming in? One has to bake in all the revenue model and the business model at the smart contract layer or at the Web2 front end. Can a framework be built at the blockchain layer itself which kind of facilitates business model? So that's where the app chain came into place. As I said, it enables a business model for apps. Another salient feature of app chain is about sovereignty, right? It's not only the creator, it's not only the developers, it's the community around it. The users of this app, they get a sovereignty, a community, a control over this app, a communal control over this app, right? So precisely the tokens, the governance tokens and the app chain tokens facilitate such sovereignty, and these two are the fundamental things what we believe that app chain brings to the table. Well, these are at the business level. How does it boil down to technical level, right? So these are ensured via these 4 primitives. One is gated smart contract development, deployment. Sorry, it's a typo there. That means whenever a smart contract is being deployed, you need an approval from the admin of an app chain to deploy that. For example, you can't deploy a smart contract on anybody can't deploy a smart contract on DeFi kingdoms. You need an approval from the DeFi kingdoms community to deploy over there. And then the custom gas token. This is very important because that the fundamental primitive for business is whenever the user is interacting, getting the service from this app, he needs to pay with a custom token that is dictated by this app chain owner or app chain community. If that is so, then it gets traction and it gets the economic value for it. So the custom gas token is a salient feature that enables these primitive. So not only the token, why do the apps on any chain need to be restricted to get the transaction fee only in Ether or only in the native currency of any blockchain, right? They should be free to select their own token. Also, they should be free to set a price for their services. So this is custom gas pricing. So another argument that favors about for app chains are localized fee markets. That means if there is a hotspot on a blockchain state somewhere, the users of an app chain don't have to pay for that, right? For example, on Ethereum, if there is a hotspot, if there is some smart contract attracting huge traffic, the gas price rises for everybody. An app would easily argue that why are you increasing my gas price for my users, given that I am attracting the same amount of traffic, okay, or my traffic has not jumped as much to substantiate for this much rise in the gas price. So that is where the localized fee market comes in. It is still a market because it's a business model. You would want to increase the gas price based on the demand, but demand to your app chain, right? So that's the localized fee market. So let's see we understood that the app chains are important, and it enables a business model for apps, and it grants sovereignty to the community around it. But what are the existing solutions, right? The layer 2 rollups, ZK rollups, subnets or shards, or these integrated ecosystems like Cosmos, Polkadot parachains, Avalanche subnets, and even as I said about L2s. So these are the current infrastructural solutions for app chains. The recent migration or the planned migration of Uniswap is also to a Unichain, which will be an Ethereum L2 based on OP stack. Yes, these are the current solutions, but we find that there is a huge limitations, delimiting factors for these app chains. It requires heavy bootstrapping. Fundamentally, we said it's an exclusive blockchain for an app, right? So that shows the burden of it also, in the sense that you would have to spin up a network. If you want a high decentralized security, you'll have a large network. So that means you'll have to enroll multiple node operators, multiple nodes to run your consensus protocol, run your app and everything. And also, so that bootstrapping itself is very heavy. Another important thing is for any app to be successful, you need to bridge assets, either it's fungible or non-fungible, to this chain from other chains. Because app chains are not general purpose blockchains, users will typically be using multiple blockchains and they'll park assets on multiple other chains. So it requires bridging, and bridging is a complex and latency prone and solution to move assets, and it impacts the liquidity integration. So users or the institutions will have to park or fragment their liquidity across multiple chains. This is definitely not a desirable feature at all. Oops. Okay. So we have the privilege of our CEO here in our audience, Josh Topkin. This is precisely the question he put to our Supra team. Why can't we support multiple app chains on a single layer 1 blockchain, especially on Supra blockchain? And he led the research, and the result is Supra Containers. And we have the white paper up on our website. I would request all the interesting people who are interested in knowing more about Supra Containers to have a browse of this paper. So let's begin to unpack Supra Containers. In the rest of the slides, I'll try to show how Supra Containers give the app chain experience on a layer 1 blockchain for multiple app chains, for multiple apps, as well as I'll also try to show you and argue that it goes beyond app chains. What are Supra Containers? Fundamentally, it's just a group of smart contracts. Okay, there is no separate blockchain for an app. We are creating artificial boundaries for a group of smart contracts that are in the back end of any dApp. Okay, group of smart contracts typically belonging to a single application or a group of related applications. But that's not enough, right? We started out to give an app chain experience. That means we need to facilitate app-based business model and give sovereignty to the community. How do we do that? As we saw previously, we need to fundamentally break that down into these primitives. That means how do we realize custom gas token? How do we make the container admins set their own gas price? How do we enable approved or gated deployment of smart contracts? And more importantly, how do we enable localized fee markets, right? So the implementation is work in progress, and it's we have put out containers in our roadmap. It will come soon on our testnets and mainnets. But this would involve a widespread modification and widespread implementation. One has to modify the transaction structure because you have new fields now. There is no container concept at all in the public blockchains, right? You need to add this container field into the transaction. So also the custom gas token. The transactions, the way we interpret the gas is completely enshrined. Now we have to make available the kind of token used for transaction fee. Transactions targeting to different containers will have different tokens to pay for gas, so that has to be there in the transaction. Then the smart contracts have to be managed. We need to know which bundle of smart contracts are in which container and stuff, so that has to be managed. The biggest chunk will come in the runtime. In VM runtime, we need to deduct gas not in the native currency but in a custom currency. That means different currencies for different transactions targeting different containers and at a different price. So this requires modification to the VM, and so also the gated deployment, right? Typically in the app chains now, the deployment of a smart contracts happens completely, or the approval happens completely off chain, right? Now we have to bring that on chain as well. That means if somebody wants to deploy a contract on a container, he needs to get the approval from the admin of it. And to realize the localized fee markets, we need to enable some form of block space quota. Let's say if block space are in the order of 100 million gas units, one is to say, like, we reserve 10 million gas units for container 1, 20 million gas units for container 2, like that. Once you have such a quota system, then it enables localized fee market. So these all are work in progress, and these are all make sense when you have a very high throughput system. Okay, the block space quota in a system where there is higher demand than you can accommodate is very counterproductive. For example, in Ethereum, you have the transactions in the mempool itself will take so much of time than the transactions that coming into the blocks, or the transaction that can be accommodated into the blocks. So we at Supra, as we have advertised multiple times, we are a all-in-one blockchain which is vertically integrated with multiple services. I'll come to that as well. And we have a very elastic network where we can accommodate the desired demand, or the input demand of traffic by elastically stretching the network. In this premise, we believe the containers makes more sense and more yields more benefit in such a environment. Okay. So as I said, the implementation is work in progress. The another big component of containers is about economics. Suppose we saw the two entities now, right? The container owner, or the app chain creator, and the users, right? This can be visualized as a private company. A company is offering some services, and the consumers are consuming this service. There's an interaction between these two. Now the economic model enhances when you take this public. That means you would want to allow public participation for investments, right? If somebody sees this company is doing very good, let me put in my money and get some profit share out of it, right? So that's where precisely the new concept comes in. It's about a new entity in the mix is about lessees, block space lessees. Oops. Right. Here. Yeah, here is where we allow anybody to come in uh, and deposit Supra and buy the block space and allocate to their desired containers. For example, I might see that this container, we all have visibility, right? Which lending protocol is doing very good, which AMM is doing very good on chain. So these analytics are very visible. They're all out there. So one can invest in them, saying that I will say, for this epoch or for next 100 blocks, this container is going to be attracting great traffic. So let me buy block space for it and allocate for it. By doing so, the profits or the transaction fee that the user is packing into the transactions, that can be split into the container owner and the lessees. Okay, so that's where the profit sharing happens, and this is where we take the private company into a public company or make the containers more economically viable. So our white paper is in the making. It will be out soon. So yeah, so the one thing to highlight is this completes the puzzle. The container technically as a group of smart contracts and the implementation plus the economics part of it is what comes together and makes a very very compelling case for business. Now what we have seen so far is like Supra Containers is equal to the appchains, and I would want to argue that Supra Containers is greater than appchains, and that is precisely because of this feature of composability, and this is what it distinguishes. Like here is a illustration of the way different containers could look like. So what's happened? Oh my God. Okay. Okay, here in the bottom we have a public Supra container, public in the sense that anybody can deploy their smart contract, and let's say the container A, B, C are the permission containers, yes, and all the white things are the smart contracts inside it, and the arrows are the method calls. So composability or a cross container thing is, or cross app chain or cross container thing is no more than a method call here. So it's not at all complex because they are all being staged on the same chain, right? And containers can bake in their own access policy, right? To agree or regulate which kind of so to agree or regulate which kind of cross container method calls they would entertain. So here is the here is the argument for the composability. Let's say in the case of app chain, if there are 2-3 app chains and they would all want to use a particular stable coin, let's say USDT, then the USDT has to be deployed on those chains separately, right? That would also mean that it fragments already the USDT's liquidity across multiple chains. But in our case of containers, the USDT can be deployed on a public Supra container, and all the containers can make use of it. Right? You don't need a separate deployment of this stable coin. It doesn't end with just the stable coin. It will go ahead with any lending protocol, a game. Suppose you are building a container specific to a DeFi AMM, but you still want to use it or expose your AMM to a gamify app or something. You can allow that to happen. So this composability or predictive markets, for example. So this composability is what where Supra Containers goes beyond app chains, where even the projects which are not thinking of app chains can think of Supra Containers now. Okay, so just to wrap up in terms of what are the limitations that we overcome. As we said previously, the limitation of app chains were the fragmented liquidity. Because of this composability, we have a unified, or we can provide unified liquidity. And also because we don't have to spin up new networks for each app chain, for each container, we have a cost-effective bootstrapping. The network is already there. You just have to deploy smart contracts there. Now, if you have even if you spin up a new network, you have to pay rewards for them to maintain the ongoing costs. Now, the same network is hosting multiple containers. Your recurring payments are so low or amortized across multiple things, right? And more importantly, you inherit the economic security of a L1, which is, in case of Supra, which is rooting for the highest decentralized security possible. Yeah, but I'll not go through this. There is another aspect of parallel execution. I wanted to argue that container also serves as an access specification, which can be exploited for executing transactions in parallel across multiple cores. So here is a here's an experiment that we did where we compared against Solana, C-level, EVM sequential execution, and Aptos block STM, and we showed that the specification of containers to yield benefits in terms of execution times is very promising. So here is the summary. Supra containers are app chains on layer 1, and they go beyond it by overcoming the limitations of of app chains via the notion of composability. And because they are hosted on Supra layer 1, they get access to native oracles through our DORA protocol, native randomness, the automation, and we have multi-VM support, the cross-chain communications all natively. So here is a takeaway message. This is a win-win for the network, so for Supra, for the consumers, and for the app creators. That's all. Thank you. We will be in the booth. I mean, if there is any conversation you would want to have, I will be available. Our Supra CEO is also here. We can take up there. Thank you very much.